All right, welcome back, everybody, to the ATB NFL Live Show. We're finally back. It's been a little while, but things happen. As you can tell, if you've been a watcher before, my background is very different. I no longer live where I was living before. I'm actually in Pittsburgh now, essentially a little south of Pittsburgh, but closer to my Steelers, of course. It'll be fun for me to do that, but a lot of stuff going on for us individually, so we had to kind of take a little bit of a break. But we're back, and we're going to be moving on to the AFC West division that it feels simple, but also there's a lot of moving parts for some of the, especially the two bottom teams. I think a lot of question marks about what their future is, but we'll see how that goes. But starting off, though, we need to talk about something that we missed the opportunity to talk about. Pretty much just the entire running back situation in the NFL. It kind of blew up over the past couple of weeks of whether it's contracts, value, running backs getting on Zoom calls to determine what to do about the situation. Very interesting, very funny to me. Just a lot going on with the position, and we've all known like this is going to come to a head at some point. The running back position has been devalued more and more over the past really decade, mostly the last 5 years, especially though, both contract wise and just draft value wise. Unless you're a truly elite prospect like a Bijan Robinson this past year, or if you're the Lions, Jahmyr Gibbs, I suppose as well. You're not going to get drafted super high, and you're also not going to get a second contract that's worth a lot of money in general. So with that being said, and with that going on right now, I want to just get an idea of what you guys think about that whole situation in general, whether it's, what you think should happen, what's going to happen, whatever it may be. So let's start with Tony here.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and give my spiel on the running back market and save my thoughts more specific to Taylor to like round two of this conversation after we get around to all of our opinions. So
yes,
on the running back market in general, I think this comes through in my analysis on everything. I am more analytics inclined. I'm usually on the side of what the smart folks are saying. And in the majority of arguments, I do agree. You shouldn't pay your running back. Their success is less dependent on themselves than most other positions, so the money is better spent elsewhere. That's usually my attitude. However, this offseason has been an insane overcorrection. The NFL, they'd always been willing to pay running backs, and we've seen the teams that do that recently kind of get bit by it, and this feels like the first year where all teams are kind of uniformly like overcorrecting and saying, oh shit, we should stop doing that. But I would still pay elite guys good money. Like they're missing the point here. The point is that in a constraint-based market, you don't want to shell out tons of money to the guys that aren't, providing 100% value. But a guy like Saquon Barkley, you run your offense through him, he's worth more than the franchise tag. Like, I would pay any elite running back the Nick Chubb contract, the 3-year, 36.6 with 20 guaranteed. Like, I'd do that in a heartbeat every single time. Then, like, I don't know, that's a manageable contract. You can play games with it, and you have an elite running back. Like, you want good players on your roster. So the rule that I would live by if I were a GM, never going to see this play out in real life. Sorry, folks, unless I start a Madden stream somewhere. But don't draft a running back high enough or give a bell cow load worthy of a market contract. Just save yourself the headache and bring in a few good guys, maybe mid-round picks, sprinkle in a low-cost vet, and platoon your running backs. Keep everybody fresh, keep everybody productive, and most importantly, keep everybody with the understanding that if they hit the open market, they're probably looking at a $6 million contract max. Because then you can take care of your players, you can pay those guys the contract they have earned based off of their play, keep the locker room happy, keep the players happy, keep everybody happy, and you never even have to approach the conversation of, hey, do we pay this guy $20 million a year like he's asking? So that's what I would do. Obviously, it's not perfect because you do run into elite running backs, then you have to make decisions. Personally, if I have a quarterback that I am paying big money for, running back is off limits for me in terms of spending the money. Otherwise, if I have a low-cost guy or even a mid-tier guy, I think that the teams have overcorrected. They should be willing to pay the $12 million contract. They shouldn't be willing to reset the market every single time, and they should be careful when they're doing it, but they should be willing to do it. So that's my running back market spiel. I've got more on the Taylor situation specifically for later.
Gotcha. What do you think, Zach? Anything you want to add to that?
So it's interesting that you brought up the fact that it's interesting that there's been an overcorrection this year. And I think one thing that surprised a lot of people this year, specifically this offseason, was in the draft when we saw 2 running backs for the first time in forever go so high. Do we think that there's possibly been an overcorrection because 2 of the most running back needy teams? I hesitate to call the Bijan went to Atlanta, right?
The Falcons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hesitate to call the Falcons a running back needy team because they had some good running backs. But like, I think that could be part of the issue is that the teams that were willing to shell out the money for running back took one so early.
The Lions also shelled out the money.
Yeah, I mean, in comparison to the market, yeah, Montgomery got a good deal, but
yeah,
I will say on the draft piece of it, I do feel that the NFL never really got away from drafting running backs high. It's just that there were a few years where there wasn't one worthy of the top 15 pick. But we've seen routinely, like, last year was the first in a while where there wasn't a first round running back. It feels like there's always one in the 20s. Every 5 to 8 years, there's a couple in the top 15.
Well,
I don't think we ever laid off the gas on that piece of it.
That's I think the bigger change is we've seen less in the top 15. And it's been Najee was taken in the 20s, and
ETN
I think,
as well,
ETN,
but I think if Bijan Robinson were draft eligible in the Najee year, we would have seen Bijan go top 10, right? Like it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like it was just that there wasn't a player worthy of it.
Yeah, but
there's been talent, but there hasn't been like the top tier first round talent for the past, or like the top tier first round talent for the past couple of years. Yeah.
I think for me,
it's interesting. No, you're good. It's interesting because I think part of the issue is that, like you said, it should be easy for a team like the Giants to sit here and be like, oh, Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones. He's good enough to run our offense, but who's really the driver here in the past season, at least? And that was Saquon Barkley, because the year before they were awful. Saquon comes back fully healthy, ready to go. They have a fantastic season. There's no question to me there who's the driver of that offense. Now, whether the Giants are trying to sit here and be like, oh, well, maybe we need to then go ahead and upgrade at the quarterback position. That's their long-term plan, and that's why they don't want to pay. But no, then they just turn around and gave the money to Daniel Jones. So it's just it's confusing to me to understand what some of these teams want. And I think that's the issue, is that a lot of these teams that have the good running backs don't know what they want. They're stuck in a weird position where they're like, oh, are we tearing it down, or are we competing? The Raiders, which we will be talking about in a little bit. You have who are some of these other ones? Derrick Henry's not a problem because he's going to get paid because he's an animal.
And his contract's up after this year, so it'll be super interesting to see. If he falls off this year, then it's super easy to. But if he's still good, it'll be interesting.
But honestly, the Cowboys, what are the Cowboys doing right now? Like, yeah, they have Dak Prescott. Yeah, they have been competitive, but they also lost a lot of pieces this year. Are they tearing down? Are they building back up? Like, where do you go from here to be like, oh, yeah. So that, I guess that's the biggest problem, is a lot of these teams are stuck in this limbo of like, oh yeah, we'd like to be competing, but we're like a couple injuries away from being an awful team. So do we give the running back that much money? Because what if they're one of the people that gets injured?
I think ultimately where this conversation leads, whenever you do it, is it's very much a case by case basis, right? The teams that pay their running backs a lot of money, they need to understand whether or not the direction of the team is going to lead them to using that running back in a way that makes their contract worth it, right? Are they good enough, or are they so good that to run the offense the way you want to run it, you have to have that caliber of player? I think you look at the Browns, right? They want to obviously move to more of a passing game because they spent all that money on he who should not be named, but Nick Chubb is a monster, right? You do not want to lose a guy who is basically a trump card for your offense. Like, he's going to get 5 yards of carry. He's going to score a lot of touchdowns. He's going to have breakaway runs, big chunk plays. Like, that offense has relied on that the past few years. So they say, okay, well, we're going to pay him then, right? It wasn't anything egregious, like Tony said. Like, it's probably the right contract for a player of his caliber at this point, value-wise. But they paid him for that reason. Saquon Barkley, he should be on a 3 or 4 year deal with the Giants right now. Just full. Like, that should be the case because even if they don't want to rely on Saquon Barkley, they do right now. Daniel Jones is not going to be the reason this team wins games. He will probably be the reason they don't lose some if he plays to the level he played at last year, but he's not going to be the X factor to win them 3 or 4 extra games. Barkley, though, with his big playability, could be the difference, though, offensively for them, especially with their receiver group, which is a lot of guys and no one that I'm confident about, right? Like certain teams value running backs or should value their running backs higher than maybe a team like the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs have no reason to ever give a running back a big contract with Patrick Mahomes on the team, right? They don't need it. They can get good enough play out of the Pachecos,
they
the
don't have
of
to
the
give
world.
a wide receiver a big contract.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, they're kind of a unique scenario, but still, like teams like that, right? Like you don't need like the reason the Chargers aren't going to give Eckler a new contract or big contract is because as valuable as he can be, they have a guy that just paid $50 million plus for because he's a really good quarterback, right? Like it depends on your situation, right? Like if you look at the Falcons, you mentioned Zach about how they weren't running back needy, but Arthur Smith clearly, if you look back at his time with the Titans, especially, he has a brand of football he wants to play, and Bijan Robinson allows him to do that and more as well. I mean, he's definitely the runner you expect him to be is going to be great, but he's also a great receiver, which is something he didn't have with Derrick Henry, for example. Like he's going to run his offense through that backfield, and because of that, it makes sense to invest in running back highly like that. So it's really just about a case by case basis, right? For these elite guys, like you look at Josh Jacobs, it makes sense for the Raiders not to want to pay him because where are they going with or without him? Is his impact going to be enough? We'll talk about it when we get to the Raiders, but is he going to impact them so much that it makes sense to pay him 12, 13, 14 million dollars? Probably not where they're at right now, especially considering they just put a band-aid at quarterback and you don't know what the situation is going to be there. It's all just subjective, right? It's going to be based on the situation at the time. So before we move into the AFC West, their breakdown, anything else you want to add? I know you want to talk about Jonathan Taylor real quick, Tony, right? Especially his situation.
Yeah, so Jonathan Taylor feels a bit different than the other pieces of the running back market that have kind of fallen this year, mainly because he has a year of term left, and he has 0 leverage, and he's the one making the most aggressive play of all.
Yes, he is really, really going for it. Yeah,
I mean,
it's
cool.
And he's battling like the top tier dungeon. No. He's dealing like the top tier like dungeon master of all owners in the
Jim Irsay
rolling up in the luxury bus to tell him no, we're not going to honor your trade request.
And then he spends $20 million to get an orca sent home or something. Did you see that headline?
Yeah, that's
Jim's just he's wild.
The timing there,
man. He's wild. But I don't know.
So with Taylor, I do empathize because unlike these other guys who are now forced to play on a $10 million guaranteed tag, Taylor is still on his second round pick rookie contract. He's not making a ton of money. No. And for him, Jim Irsay historically trades his running backs before he pays them. So Taylor's looking at it like, man, I've been hurt once before with this team. I just played injured through a whole season, lost a lot of time, my ankles are still hurt kind of. Why am I going to go bust my ass for this team again? We're not going to be all that good. And then they're not going to pay me. They're going to send me elsewhere. Just do it now. Like, I understand why he feels that way. And it sucks.
The reasoning is sound. Yeah.
His owner is never going to entertain a fair offer for him. Now, Jonathan Taylor doesn't sound like he's asking for a fair offer yet, but the day might come where he finally concedes and says, fine, just give me a fair offer. And he knows for a fact Irsay won't honor that. So, I understand why he's upset, why he's being aggressive. Unfortunately, he doesn't have leverage. If he sits out, they can put him on the NFI list because of this back injury. They can refuse to pay him, give him no money, and his contract doesn't toll. So he's under contract. He's under the 4th year of his rookie contract again next year if it comes to that. So no leverage there. He's gonna have to show up and play eventually, and he's gonna just have to eat it. The crazy thing to me, and why I really wanted to touch on Taylor right now, is the Colts are the prime example of when it makes sense to pay your running back. Like, the Colts in their current iteration could not be more of a textbook example of, hey, it makes sense to pay this running back. You have a superstar running back on a run-first team. Your entire offensive philosophy is going to be your run game based off of your extremely, extremely athletic run-first quarterback. The pairing of Taylor and Richardson is exactly what you were going for. You've built the offensive line through it. You've built your receiver room to touch explosives like that. Like, everything is built to drop it, and importantly, Anthony Richardson, rookie contract. Your tackle, your left tackle is on a rookie contract. Your right tackle is getting good money, but like it's still kind of a value. Your premium positions are not, they're still on rookie contracts. So you have so much money available that if you pay Jonathan Taylor right now, if you call him up and say, hey, we're going to give you a 4-year, $52 million extension, we're going to give you $25 million guaranteed.
Tony, I literally was about to say, call this man up and give him 4 years, $52 million.
Yeah, exactly. it's 13 a year. It's clean. Yeah. Give him $25 million guaranteed because that's just $3 million more than if he played out two franchise tags. It would make him the happiest player in the world. It would make the locker room so glued together, all like coming together in this run for focus, whatever. It would fit the team perfectly, and most importantly, the perception around the league to agents to players would be so elevated because everybody right now is doing the thing where they're not paying the running backs. If you're the team that does, you gain a boost in the eyes of all future free agents, of all agents going forward. Instead, when they didn't have to, they decided to become public enemy number one. And it's just the most hilarious fumbling of the bag because you could not paint a better picture to sign your running back. Because when Jonathan Taylor is 4 years down the road and he's played out his contract, Anthony Richardson needs a new contract. You pay him. Now you can't afford to pay the running back. Ooh, look, it worked perfectly. Like, it's just so funny. This is the perfect situation to do the thing where you pay them and they're the team stuck on not doing it. Most out of anybody. It's just so funny.
It's really disappointing because selfishly, right, I want to see Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson play football together. Because if Taylor's healthy and Richardson figures it out and even is just a runner, it's just going to be really, really funny to watch defenses try to figure that out. Like, because as much as I think that whenever Lamar and Mark Ingram were together that during his MVP year, one of the most unstoppable run games I've ever seen. Lamar, even though he's a more overall dynamic runner of the football, Richardson is a tank. He can like actually legitimately run through people if he wants to. Now, I'm hoping he doesn't do that too much because you don't want to see him get hurt, but he is a mammoth of a man for a quarterback that can run like him. So like he's a different type of running threat, right? And Jonathan Taylor, no offense to Mark Ingram, a little bit better than him, I would say. So that combo would be devastating to defenses in the run game. I don't know if it'd mean anything wins-wise, but it'd be very fun to watch. I'm hoping that does get figured out enough, at least this year, right? But it is disappointing that we know Jim Irsay is not going to get out of his own way enough to see that, oh, man, I can pay this running back who's awesome and have him with my rookie quarterback, and then by the time it matters whether he's making $13 million, I can just say it's over and we can just move on with the quarterback and pay him, like you said, Tony. It's disappointing. But I'm not surprised.
And
right,
$13 million is like Gabe Davis money. Like,
right.
It's just very funny that we're like, it's not like I think he is asking for like 16, 17, but I think if you gave him that $13 million contract, he would say yes.
Would just be like, yeah, fine. All right, I'll take it. Yeah. I don't know. But anything you want to add, Zach, before we move on to AFC West here?
No, the only thing I was going to add is that Jim Irsay is insane, and he said to James Boyd of The Athletic, if I die tonight and Jonathan Taylor's out of the league, no one's going to miss us. The league goes on. We know that. The National Football League rolls on. It doesn't matter who comes and who goes, and it's a privilege to be a part of it. And that's who Jonathan Taylor has to deal with right now.
So that's the Shanahan Jimmy Garoppolo discussion of last year. I don't even know if we'll be alive next week.
Listen. No, sorry. During the middle of that conversation, I kind of got lost because I did not realize what happened in college football yesterday.
The Pac-12 dissolving into dust.
Yeah. So I was kind of confused in reading about that for a second, which is like, holy cow.
Yeah, the whole 4-team Pac-12, Pac-4 coming up in 2024.
Meanwhile, the Big Ten's gonna have like 20 teams calling it the Big Ten still.
Big 20.
Big 20. I'm game for it. I'm Big 10.
The Big 10 times 2.
Big 10 times 2. That's actually a good name for it. No, but we'll move on to not talking about Jim Irsay any more than we have to. Moving on to the AFC West. So we've covered almost all the divisions. Now after this, we just have the East divisions. Had to save those for last, of course, with you guys here with the Bills and Dolphins. So we'll get into that. But AFC West was billed before last season as maybe the greatest division in NFL history. People were talking about, like, legitimately, that was conversations started happening, and then the games started happening, and we had the Broncos Seahawks debacle the week one that was just really interesting, and then it all kind of fell apart from that team. Specifically with the Denver Broncos, they make the huge move to go get Russell Wilson last offseason. Everyone was, including myself, thought, okay, this can be the move that can get them a quarterback, maybe similar to the Peyton Manning situation where they bring a guy in who's a veteran who can kind of get them over the top. And then he didn't exactly do that. Now, I'm hesitant to say that it was entirely his fault. Obviously, there's some other things going on here, but and that's where I want to start this conversation, is Russell Wilson looked legitimately bad. Like, not just like, oh, maybe he just needs to acclimate to the team, maybe he just needs to work. No, like, he looked legitimately like not a even like middle tier starting quarterback anymore last year. And let's just start with that conversation, because that's really the biggest conversation for this team moving forward is, one, what happened with Russell Wilson? Can they do anything about it? And what does it mean for their immediate future? So let's start with Tony here. What do you think about that situation?
I think it's redeemable. So I was really, really anti Broncos last offseason. I laid 100 on the under 10 wins. I'm gonna brag about my wins because that's one of few.
Right. Gotta talk about the ones you win.
Yeah. You can only talk about the wins, never the losses. But I didn't think they were gonna be that good because I mean I had firsthand experience to Nate Hackett in Buffalo. I know that he's not a competent offensive coordinator. I know that he's a great glue guy if you have a competent play caller at head coach, but if he's your offensive coordinator, he's the one driving your scheme, he's the one designing everything, then you're dead in the water. So I knew it wasn't going to be good. Russell Wilson did look way worse than I ever would have expected him to, but I think it's a real uphill battle going from what Pete Carroll did in Seattle, and I know Russell Wilson butted heads against Carroll, against the locker room, against the culture there, but the structure and culture Carroll had in place, it makes things really easy, and things that you don't really think about, like areas of the game you don't think about. They were running the play clock down to the last second every single time. Like, do we remember week 2? The Broncos fans were chanting the play clock as like a shot clock buzzer at a college basketball game because they didn't feel the offense had a grasp of when they were supposed to hike the ball. So stuff like that, if you can't even get to that point, then it's really hard to play quarterback in a new scheme, in a new city. I think a lot of that challenged him. And we saw towards the end of the season when nobody was really watching this offense, I had to go back and watch it kind of for the first time the other day. But towards the end of the season, after Hackett was out of there, the offense ran. Now, Russ didn't look great, but he looked like that mid-tier quarterback that can run your offense if it's designed well. And insert Sean Payton, I think that Russ Wilson has been humbled. I think he's going to be willing to play the scheme as it should be played. And Sean Payton's going to be telling him exactly what he should be doing the entire way. So I think that we're going to see a lift from dead last to firmly mediocre. And I think there's even slight upside beyond that, but I wouldn't say he's never going to jump back into that really, really good tier.
Yeah, I think that the question is really more about like what can be saved from it, because last year there's really not much to take away, right? I think, and you touched on it, the scheme with Nathaniel Hackett, it didn't really feel like there was anything happening at all with it. Like there's no balance, there's no real, like the route concepts didn't make a whole lot of sense to me most of the time watching it. Like, and I think part of the problem with Russell Wilson too, and this is something that I think a lot of people who didn't watch Seahawks a lot or didn't really understand, like the reason Russell Wilson was so good was because he was running the Russell Wilson offense, like his own basically offense. This is a guy who did not attack the middle of the field, did not go through his reads that often because he kind of had predetermined things he wanted to do, or he would create plays on his own. He working within the scheme that Hackett had, like a really good quarterback who's run the scheme before, like Aaron Rodgers, who's worked with him, and now he's back with him with the Jets. We'll see how that goes. We'll talk about that when we get the AFC East. It's doable, right? Because you can understand the scheme, you can work within it. Like but he's never had the experience of doing that. He's always pretty much, especially during his years where he was MVP caliber play, was a lot of his own, like he's going to throw the ball down the field to the sidelines, outside the numbers, all that stuff. And when that wasn't the case last year, he did not adjust well to it. And I think at the end of the year, like you said, Tony, he started to get a little bit more comfortable with things, and he started doing some of the stuff that maybe he was more comfortable with in general once Hackett was out of there. But now that you bring Sean Payton in, he's going to have to still make an adjustment to his game, but I think it's going to be much easier because Sean Payton is actually good at play calling and play designing. So I do think he's going to at least elevate himself back to a true starting caliber player where like you're not worried about him being the reason you lose necessarily. But and we'll get into this with the roster and everything else is can the roster around him be the thing that elevates him, maybe even a step beyond just being a mid-tier quarterback again, like you said, Tony. But anything you want to add with Wilson here, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, you said, Tony, you think Russell Wilson's been humbled. Absolutely. When was the last time you saw a Russell Wilson commercial?
Mr. Incredible.
Mr. Incredible.
Yeah, those are all gone. And I mean, not that it was a bad thing. That was like completely and utterly overstated. That became like just a weaponized thing because he was playing bad.
Yes,
but
yes, I'm not above that.
Oh yeah, no.
Goofy guy.
But no, it's interesting because like you guys said, the offense in Seattle is, I mean, that's why Geno Smith was able to step in. I mean, you are set up for success there as long as the pieces are there to build. And the Seahawks have done a very good job at maintaining the pieces needed to continue the success of that offense. But that's where you get to, I mean, you hear what Sean Payton said, that last year was the worst coach season that he like the stuff that he was hearing. He was just like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? So I'm excited to see what happens with Wilson in a new system, new coach. And it's not like we're like talking about a dude who's never done this before. We're talking about Sean Payton. So he's had his fair share of seasons. So yeah, I'm not as worried this year. Now, granted, I was in the boat last year that was like, oh yeah, Russell Wilson to the Broncos, like, oh, that's gonna be awesome. Yeah, this is gonna be great.
Could have been in theory, but
it could have been, yeah. But we'll see what happens this year.
Yeah, so let's get into the strengths of the Broncos first. We'll talk about that because I don't know about you guys, but I had trouble identifying too many of these with this team. Because a lot of it is, a lot of question marks still, or just, lack of depth in certain situations. So I really like their secondary. I think that's probably the strongest, on their team in general. Obviously, really well coached last year, really good starters, especially with Shayne and Justin Simmons, especially the kind of two elite players on the secondary. Offensive line, I hesitate to call a strength yet, but I think that I like how they've built it. McGlinchey, I have a lot of questions about him as a pass protector, but as a run blocker, we know what he can do. Ben Powers, really, really good player from the Ravens they bring in on a pretty sizable deal, but it was definitely necessary. You get Garrett Bowles back. Like, I think that unit is going to be pretty strong. And then running back, health permitting. If Javonte Williams is actually healthy like they say he's going to be, like Sean Payton said, he might even play in the preseason, him and P. Ryan will be a very, very good running back duo, I believe, because they're both very capable in both parts of the game, I think. Especially P. Ryan really was good for the Bengals past couple of years as a pass catcher, weirdly enough, and he was very effective in like the screen game and things like that. And then coaching, right? Like coaching is kind of the thing with this team, is the ceiling of the team is going to be determined, and the floor too, to a certain degree, by how well Sean comes in and can get this team rolling again, right? Offensively, especially. Defensively, I think they're going to be fine. There's some question marks to have with them, but they were really good last year despite having some of the same question marks, so I'm not super concerned there. But it's really just like, again, the ceiling of this team, whether they can get closer to like at least competing for something this year, is going to be about how well this offense can gel with Sean Payton coaching it. So any other strengths you guys wanted to throw in there? Anything you wanted to mention?
Not that it's a strength or a weakness, but I think wide receiver has the most room to show growth this year.
It's in that midline for me. I think if Tim Patrick didn't get hurt, I would probably have them on
KJ Hamler, but
getting cut, but
I mean, you have Jerry Jeudy
and everything.
Yeah, exactly too. Yeah,
you've got Jeudy and you've got Sutton. Like, I'm confident in those two. I'm very excited to see what Marvin Mims Jr. can do.
I'm a big fan of his as well, Tony. I know you and I both. Yeah.
But even they stole two people straight from the Saints with Marquez Callaway and Lil Jordan Humphrey, and they both have not been bad in their limited.
Yeah, they're there to help get that offense figured out too, like help teach the guys as well.
Yeah, teach guys.
And Kendall Hinton. Kendall Hinton is a.
I like
is
Kendall
a
Hinton.
He's
I
a
like
better
Kendall Hinton.
receiver than he is quarterback.
Yes, very much.
and
so.
he has a place in NFL history. He will never be forgotten. So
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Good slot receiver though too.
but yeah, no, they I think that group has a lot of room for improvement, not necessarily room for improvement, or room for growth, and could become like a good strength for this team.
For sure. Yeah, I would say so as well.
To touch on, I do see the offensive line as just a full-on strength. I
do
but
too.
I
It's
think
just-
it's mostly because how I see the play calling and the offensive line coming together. I think they're going to be a really, really run-heavy team, and I think the offensive line they built shows you that. They brought in Mike McGlinchey and Ben Powers on big contracts. Those players played for the 49ers and Ravens, respectively, two very run-heavy teams. They knew what they were doing signing those guys. I think that their skill position group overall is a strength. Like, I know there's hesitancy on the health of the running back group. Personally, I think Samaje Perine should hold it down for the first 6 weeks of the season, and then you get a full healthy Javonte, and you get a 1-2 punch there. Yeah, that would be ideal. But the wide receiver room, if Tim Patrick hadn't gone, I would call it like a really good one. I think it still is good. I think there's upside youth in it. I like what they've got going offensively for how I think they're going to play. Similarly, I see offensive play calling as a strength. I'm not going to list a strength for the defense outside of Pat Surtain because I've got my concerns. Is it Surtain or Surtain? I've always said Surtain, and I feel like I'm the wrong one here.
I think it's Surtain, actually. I think it's how it's actually pronounced. I've always said Surtain, but I think it actually is Surtain.
Randy Gregory's not bad.
He just doesn't play.
So, swapping out Draymond Jones for Zach Allen hurt my soul.
It's definitely a downgrade. I think that Allen is a good player, but Jones really kind of got into his own the last couple of years. So that was definitely something I would have rather them not do. But going into weaknesses, now we're talking about defensive front seven in general is definitely a question mark for me. You traded away Bradley Chubb to your Dolphins, Zach, which again, interesting move for both teams, but I get it for both sides to a certain degree.
Hey! Despite the no numbers, and we'll talk about this in a couple of weeks. Despite the no numbers, that was a fantastic move for.
It's a fantastic move if you have a guy like Jalen Phillips on the other side. Yes, they pair so nicely.
Exactly.
But
when you got guys like Melvin Ingram just like in the cut.
Yeah, right. No, but defensive front seven in general, I have question marks. Linebacker group is I like that they drafted the kid from Arkansas. I can't think of his name right now for some reason. But the athletic upside.
Stromberg was it? Is that
for linebacker.
Drew Sanders.
Yeah, Drew Sanders. So like the athletic upside outside of him is definitely not really there with like a guy like Josie Joel, but he's at least a veteran who knows what he's doing out there. Wide receiver depth outside of the top two, because Marvin Mims I expect to be a good player, but how much is he going to impact year one? Callaway and Lil Jordan Humphrey have not really done anything of note in the NFL that's at least worthy of, like, if he has to come in and start, you expect a lot. And then Hinton is kind of the slot piece that I think is a good player at least. So like the receivers are good. It's just I don't know if it's going to be a strength as much as it could have been this year if Patrick was healthy, because I think he's kind of the guy that completes that group if he's healthy, unfortunately. We hope Mims can step in immediately. And then again, quarterback, we don't know. It's going to be on Russell Wilson to prove that he can.
I'm willing to call that room sufficient, though, because think about it. Like, if Russell Wilson falls out, we know exactly what we're getting from Jarrett Stidham. And in the realm of the offense I expect to see, I think Stidham and Sean Payton offense is okay.
Hey, don't count out DiNucci either. I think
DiNucci.
You never know.
No, but yeah,
tight end is a weakness too.
I love Greg Dulcich. I meant to say that during the strengths. That's what I was building myself up to, and I forgot to say it.
They're in that neutral tier because I'm not willing to call it a strength because he was a rookie last year. But like I like Greg Dulcich a lot. Yeah,
I also like that Sean Payton said, "Well, they didn't even know how to use him last year, so he's kind of a blank slate." Like that's just.
Well,
I like the way he moves.
Actually, ironically, I think that the only reason he was good last year was because everything was breaking down, and Russell Wilson was like, "Oh crap, Dulcich is open. Okay, here you go."
The key sentence is Dulcich is open. That's gonna stay. That's happening every day.
Yeah, because everything is broken down.
But he can get open. Can he block? No. But does it matter? No, I don't think.
No, that's why he traded for Adam Troutman. Troutman's taking care of the blocking.
Yeah, exactly. So
I
didn't put him in a strength
Adam Troutman.
But yeah, Saints legend. Yeah, but yeah, I think overall this team, you hope the floor is a little bit higher, right? With Sean Payton coming in, with Russell Wilson presumably getting better. he has to at least play better than last year. If he doesn't play better, then that is going to get ugly real fast.
If he doesn't play better, they will probably venture on the idea of cutting him.
I mean, I don't
you
think
have
they can
to at that
actually do it until at least like 25, maybe. Like
it all depends on how much their owner is willing to eat, and their owner can't afford to eat a lot.
Right. I think it's just the cap. Like, what is going to be the cap hit doing?
So they'd have to eat like a $60 million dead cap hit in the resultant next year. But I mean, teams have done that. Matt Ryan,
they did the Matt Ryan thing.
Yeah, the Carson Wentz, the Matt Ryans. It has happened.
It's doable.
If it's bad enough this year, I mean, look. Yeah. That's the thing is, the floor has to be like 7-8 wins. You're in the AFC West. This is the problem. They made a move to be relevant in the AFC West,
and then it didn't happen.
And I won't say that it didn't happen. There were multiple moving parts.
It didn't happen this year.
It didn't happen last year. Yeah. There were multiple moving parts that failed. Now, whether or not Wilson was a major moving part that failed or a minor moving part that just needs some readjustment is the key thing here. But if you put him with Sean Payton, with the amount that they gave up for Sean Payton now, who do you think they're going to keep longer? They're going to take the cap hit or the cap and the multiple. I mean, it's stacking on.
They would go with Sean Payton if they had to pick.
Yeah. So I think this is a make or break year for Russell Wilson.
He gives them a chance to actually make somewhat good on the Wilson situation. We'll see how it goes. But let's do record predictions, guys. For me, I'll just start here. I do think that they're not going to finish last in this division. I will say that. I don't think it's going to happen. Right? I think that we can all pretty much confidently
take that one to the bank.
Yeah. How high
hey, we all thought this last year too. So
not me.
No, Tony was not on.
You thought they were going to be worse than the Raiders?
I thought the Raiders were going to be pretty good. They just made the playoffs the year before.
Yeah,
and they just traded for Devontae Adams. I had optimism there, which obviously that didn't pay off. This is why we only talk about the wins, folks.
Exactly. Derek Carr decided to not be a good quarterback anymore last year. No, but anyway,
I'm going to hate the Saints season this year.
So for me, I think the floor, and you talked about that, I think it's going to be like 7 or so wins. Like, I think that they're going to win at least that many games just because of the fact that the defense, although it has questionable parts, I think it played really well last year. I don't think it's going to get much worse if not you stay about the same level for most of the year. So that's going to give them a little bit of a floor there. I think the offense is going to be at least decent just based on Sean Payton coming in. He's going to make it work, even if it means Russell Wilson needs to sit on the bench or something crazy or whatever it may be. Like you talked about, Tony, I think Stidham could be okay in an offense like this. They will make it work enough to at least, beat some teams that they're definitely at least more talented than that they'll play. I think they could win maybe 9 or so games. I'm not going to give them too much of a ceiling just because Wilson, I think for them to win more than like 9 games, Wilson would have to return closer to his highest level of play, which I just don't know if it's in the cards at this point. He is, getting older, and he also doesn't have the benefit of just basically running his own offense out there and doing what he thinks is best with a guy like Sean Payton. So I think it does limit the ceiling, but also raises the floor. It's kind of like a weird thing where, like, if Wilson played just his game and they had the right pieces, I think it would elevate the offense. But because they don't, he's not going to. It's basically Wilson is not going to probably return to his old self. So I don't see them being like a double-digit win team in year 1 with Payton. What do you think, Tony?
So I do think this is going to be a better team. I'm going to lead with my floor. They won 5 games last year. I think they have a floor of 4 wins this year. I think they're going to be a better team. They have a tough schedule. Just looking it over, like in addition to their division, which is really tough. They have the Bills. They have the AFC East, right? So I think that's 4 teams that I could reasonably expect them to lose to. Patriots flip a coin, but and then most importantly, a weakness I wanted to save, like just a little juicy last one. So the Chiefs played the Arizona Cardinals last year, the week 1. Vance Joseph was the defensive coordinator for these Arizona Cardinals. Nice. Yeah. Coordinator. I hate that I said that. Don't make that a thing. But they then gave up 44 points by refusing to adjust to anything that was happening in front of them. I think Vance Joseph might run a defense that is a bit susceptible to being Patrick Mahomes, and that's dangerous. That's dangerous in the division where you got Mahomes, you got Herbert, you have to play Allen, you have to play Tua plus all of that offense, you have to play Aaron Rodgers and the Jet. Like, I don't know how they're going to hold up against quarterbacks like that. So I think the defense could be where the defense was saving them last year. I think it's going to be the weak point this year, and I do think they can get to 9 wins, so call it a 4 to 9 win range. But I don't think that they have. The defense hurts. The defense really hurts. If you had this offense and last year's defense, oh, we're cooking with gas. But I don't think they can be that good this year just because of how bad I expect that defense to be.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that a lot of the issue was not just scheme and more talent with the Cardinals, but I understand where you're coming from with that.
Well, unless you're putting Surtain on Travis Kelce, I don't know how much better it's going to be.
I mean, hey, against the Chiefs, that might be the best move, actually. Because
honestly, yeah,
I would do it. I would do it.
Yeah,
Giro Evero would do it. Will Vance Joseph? We don't know.
All right, what do you think, Zach, for their prediction?
Okay, so I'm gonna sound crazy here.
I
think this is a lot better team. Now the floor, I do agree, is pretty low, probably about like 5-6 wins. I think this team could push 11 wins. That's as high as I would go. We are talking about the 4th place team in the AFC West. So like the schedule is pretty, like, compared to what the rest of this division is going to be, it's not too bad. I can see them beating I can see them doing work against the AFC North outside of Detroit.
NFC North, you mean, right?
Or NFC North, yeah, NFC
gotcha.
North, yeah. Okay. And then, given that it's divisional play, I could see them splitting all of their divisional games and then possibly sweeping the Raiders. I could see them sweep the Raiders, but I could see them steal. I could see them steal a game at home against both the Chargers and the Chiefs, just because that they get to add the environmental factor of playing at Mile High as well. So that's always a little asterisk there. Do I think it's gonna happen? No, but I do think that they could surprise a lot of people, sneak in first year and like reach double digits, but not much past like 10, 11. It's 10 or 11, yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Well, moving on to the Raiders, who let's just be honest about this. I don't know if you're a Raiders fan, like I'm not sure what you're looking for this season to happen. Like I don't know what the ideal outcome is here, because I think if you're a realistic Raiders fan, which granted I don't know how many of those there are, but not trying to throw shade at any particular fan base, but what is I don't know what the ideal outcome is here, because going in that your team is very limited ceiling wise, almost kind of by design at this point, right? Bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. Not that Derek Carr was any good last year, but I don't think you're really truly upgrading in any way. Like maybe just because of the fact that Garoppolo is probably a better fit for the scheme because he's played in it before with McDaniels. Other than that, like you're not upgrading a quarterback, obviously, really, at least not talent wise. You didn't really add anything in free agency of note that's going to change the outcome of your season. And the draft, you draft a guy like Tyree Wilson, who is really talented, but is he going to be an impact in year one? I don't really know. I don't think so personally. He might play more than maybe he would have because Chandler Jones was really bad last year and they're paying him a lot, but he's probably going to be bad again. So you might just beat him out at some point. It's just, I don't know what the goal is for this team. I don't know what as a fan, I'd be looking for with them, because I just so kind of all right, we have some really talented players, but we also we jettisoned Darren Waller, which granted he had injury issues and stuff like that. They got something for him. It just feels like they're in this limbo, right? Where they're not trying to truly compete, because even if they are, they're not going to. They're also not tearing it down in any any crazy way. They're not trading off of everybody, or they're not getting rid of everybody
because they can't afford to.
And that's it. Literally, they have a limiting factor because of who their owner is. It's kind of crazy to say.
Well, so this is what I was going to say is they're just tolerating them. I feel like there's an aura around the Las Vegas Raiders area, compound, whatever, that nobody wants Josh McDaniels there except Josh McDaniels, but they can't do anything about getting rid of Josh McDaniels and bringing somebody else in. So they're just like, all right, we're just gonna let him play this out, and then once the contract is up, then we do something. But it's just like honestly, like they're like you said, their moves make zero sense. It just like feels like this like weird aura of waiting. Like we're waiting for them to do something like substantial to be like, oh yes, you're moving in the right direction. And it's literally just like they're not even doing like a 1 step forward, 2 steps back thing. It's a 1 step forward, 1 step back. They're literally like doing the Charlie Brown like back and forth, just like perpetually, and just staying at the bottom of the AFC West, which is, I mean, not a bad place to be, but in comparison to the rest of the league, but
it's an easy place to be, but
yes,
if you don't want to be up there. Like I said, I just don't know, like, unlike the Broncos, right, where like there's reason for optimism to a certain degree. There's interesting things to talk about. What about this team is particularly interesting? Other than the fact that they're like poor for some reason as a team, and like they can't fire their coach, which is just funny. I don't like anything you want to throw in here, Tony, before we talk about the actual team itself in terms of roster. And
all of the things interesting about it to me are on the roster.
Right.
I think that their roster has enough like star power at positions that matter that they can play spoiler in late.
Right.
Like, we can all imagine the scenario where the 11-5 Chargers have to go and beat the Raiders in week 18 to make the playoffs, and boom, spoiler, and they miss. Like they have the potential to ruin somebody else's season, but they're not the main character.
And that's kind of the issue with this team, is like you have,
unless your name is Rich Bisaccia.
Yeah, well,
damn straight.
Yeah, exactly. You have really like talented players. Like you have Max Crosby, you have Devontae Adams, you have Josh Jacobs for now. Maybe we'll see how that goes. You have some premium players at their position, but nothing around them that's going to elevate the rest of the team to a competent level. And like you said, Tony, you're probably going to be able to beat some teams that maybe you shouldn't beat, or some teams that maybe should at least be able to handle you at home, especially. But because you do have premium talent. Josh Jacobs, like the Seahawks game last year, where he literally just took over the game. He was like, "Yep, we're going to win the game. I don't care." That, like, you have the potential for that type of stuff to happen. Devontae Adams can do the same type of thing. Max Crosby can go get you a win on, strip sack, end the game in late fourth quarter situation. But is it going to happen enough times for them to stay relevant in an AFC that is just better than them, right? Like the AFC is just going to happen. But if this was an NFC team, it'd be different, because you have the premium talent. You might be able to go on a run against some teams that are just don't have the talent to deal with those guys. It would be a different outlook a little bit. In the AFC, it's just I think it's too much, right? I think even a Broncos team that doesn't have the same level of star power, it's a more balanced team and coached better, they're probably just going to still be better than you, right? Now, let's get into the strengths here, because I think there are a few obviously very outlined strengths: running back, receiver, edge. Like those three groups, and the edge group outside of Crosby is a little bit questionable, but he's really good. And then you have a rookie that you're hoping can be really good as well. Chandler Jones has obviously been great in the past. Not so great last year, but he's getting paid a lot of money. He's going to have an opportunity to go back out there and try to do it again, see if he can make it work. You have premium players at those positions. Outside of that, I don't know if I can confidently call anything else a strength for this team. And that's the problem, is there's probably some groups, like the offensive line outperformed expectations last year. They weren't great, but they weren't the absolute turnstile bottom of the barrel that I expected them to be. But are they going to be a strength for the? I don't think a strength. Like it's hard to call much on this roster a strength, and I think that's kind of the issue.
Yeah, I agree. So I will say their receiver room is really, really good.
It is. It's very good. A little bit conflicting with the two mostly slot types behind Adams, but I get it still. I understand it.
I feel all right playing Jacoby Myers outside.
You can get away with it because of Adams.
And they can flip a coin on who gets out there in two wide receiver sets.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But So I do really like the wide receiver room. Like you said, I like Josh Jacobs. I like Max Crosby. I like Duke Shelley, and I like Colton Miller. I don't really like anybody else on this entire roster.
Yeah,
so.
that's about it. Yeah.
Hey. Divine Diablo is a great player.
I think he's an ascending player, but I don't.
He is
know
certainly
if I'm
one of
ready
the
for him
players
to-
in the National Football League.
Yeah, he's a guy that I think has a really interesting makeup as a linebacker type because he is that smaller like coverage.
Well,
first
ironically,
player, but I want him to have
he's
more.
a transition linebacker in the NFL. He was not a linebacker.
Yeah, he
But
played
he was a safety
at Miami, right?
Yes.
Virginia
No,
Tech.
Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech? I don't know why I
Yes.
thought that was Miami.
Yes.
Sorry.
No,
You must be
no.
terribly offended right now.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't get too.
That's not bad.
whatever over that. As long as it's not the Cavaliers, don't say that.
Fair.
They have two Hokies, but you don't see me sitting here saying that Brandon Faison is a number one.
Yeah, he's not good.
No, he's not having a good
Not
time.
good.
He's not having a good time.
Didn't he get paid a decent amount of money by the Colts last year to be a corner for them? Am I making that up? Is that where he played last year? I'm pretty sure that's true.
That
But-
sounds right to me.
Yeah, I don't know why I even know that, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened because like more money than he probably.
Oh yeah,
should
he
get.
was with the Colts last year.
Yeah, but
He was with the
work as
Chargers
well.
the first 3 years though.
Yes, yeah, he was Charger first, but no, it's again like this team is just a lot of meh, right? Like there's a few guys you can get excited about. Like I'm gonna watch some Raiders games because I want to see Devontae Adams play. I want to see Mac Crosby play. Like, but am I gonna be like, oh man, the Raiders are wow, they might have a shot here? Probably not most of the time. And like I also want to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, okay? Because it's gotten to the point where like even I'm kind of tired of crapping on Jimmy Garoppolo. Like I don't even think he's like that bad, right? But like this is such a McDaniels thing to do, right? It's like, Derek Carr, he didn't work out. Let me bring in one of my guys, and Jimmy Garoppolo has been mistreated by the NFL. Like, listen, Garoppolo is just okay, right? Like he's not going to do anything to make you win. He's occasionally will make you lose, though. Yeah, I don't even know if I'll call him mid, Zach. But like the point is like he's literally a placeholder quarterback for this scheme, right? He's like, okay, he knows the scheme. He can come in and run it. He's going to let Devontae Adams do Devontae Adams things. Like he probably won't limit this offense a lot of the time because of the type of offense it is. But as we've seen in the past with the Niners, when the going gets tough, Buddy can't hit that big throw. He just can't do it. He doesn't have the arm talent. He doesn't have just that it factor, whatever you want to call it, however you define that. He doesn't have it. So this is a team quarterbacked by a guy who embodies the fact that this team is kind of in no man's land, right? Like he is the like no man's land quarterback situation. Like that's what he is. And I think it's very telling that he's the quarterback of this team for that reason. Like you don't know what direction this team is going to go. It could go in many directions. They could decide next year, if they physically or financially capable to just say, screw it, blow all this stuff up. We're done with it. Get out of here. All you, we're done with you. Like, except for the few guys that are good.
That's what they should do.
Yeah, right. They should. Or if they magically win like 8 or 9 games, they could probably convince themselves, hey, Jimmy Garoppolo's around. He's a winner, right? He's won a lot of games for the Niners. Let's keep it rolling. Let's keep it like it just, I don't know, right? I don't know. It's really hard to talk about this team strength-wise. Weaknesses, like
yeah, they have them.
Weaknesses.
They have a lot.
There's a lot of weaknesses.
All of the above.
This team is maybe going to employ Marcus Peters to play cornerback in 2023.
Hey, currently ESPN has
and that would be an
starting.
upgrade for them.
Fair enough. If his legs work still, I'm not sure about that.
Honestly,
Hey, he's cornerback. Just start
even
Brandon
if they don't.
Faison.
Yeah. Like, who's the free safety for this team right now?
Trevon Moehrig.
I thought is he the strong or the free?
He's the free. Marcus Epps is the strong safety.
Oh, Marcus Epps is the strong safety. That's right. Never mind. I just had this mixed up. Like, who the interior defensive line? Who like?
Oh, yeah, that's bad. Jerry Tillery's like their best
Isn't
player on the
Jerry
interior.
Tillery
He's
on this
terrible.
team? Right?
Jerry Tillery is
Yeah.
starting on the defensive line on the interior.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah,
I'm
you got
not
Jerry
saying-
Tillery, Bilal Nichols, John Jenkins.
Oh God.
Neil Farrell Jr., Adam Butler.
I will
Listen.
say, late round dart throw, 7th round pick. I didn't hate Nesta Jade Silvera at ASU, so maybe.
Listen.
maybe
Whatever
he
you got to
breaks out.
tell yourself, Tony.
Hey,
All
a
right,
new
like,
Big 12 team.
a new Big 12 team.
Wait, oh yeah, they are Big 12
They
now.
are gonna, Big 12. Ultimately, before we move on to the two teams that matter in this division the most right now, if you're a Raiders fan, All I'm gonna tell you is it's probably going to get worse before it gets better.
How long did
Oh
the
yeah, I have a
contract did they
better
give
message for them
Garoppolo?
in my.
Yeah. What's up, Zach?
How long was Garoppolo's contract?
3 years,
3.
but
Okay,
it's really a
here's-
1-year deal.
but
technically.
yeah.
If you're a Raiders fan, you guys hope that this is the worst season that you've ever seen in a long time, and you get your quarterback. That's what you hope for.
I think it's yeah. So if we want to jump into records, I can give mine, which aren't as important as the thing I'm going to say immediately after the records.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I think this team can win a maximum of 7 games. I think it can lose a. I think it can win a. It might not win a game. That's where I'm at. That's possible, I think. Now, what should Raiders fans be hoping for? Remember when you guys, 6 years into his career, traded Khalil Mack and then swung and missed on 3 first-round picks? Just hope they do it better with the 3 first-round picks this time around, because they're going to be trading Max Crosby next offseason, and it's just a matter of you better hope that they nail the 3 picks this time around. So that's what you should be thinking as a Raiders fan is, how do we train our GM to draft well next year when he has all these picks from the Max Crosby trade?
As a fellow team that has been in the 3 first-round pick sweepstakes, it's not easy.
Do what the Eagles did and trade one of those for a next year first, so that way you get the whole. What did they get out of? They got so much out of that, didn't they? Just Jalen Carter gifted to them because of that whole ordeal.
Basically, yeah.
But yeah, I think Max
Basically
Crosby's on a different
Jalen
team
Carter.
in 2024. That's my main point here.
Yeah, I mean, he is on his big extension now, right? So like
2 years into it is exactly when Khalil Mack got traded. So that's kind of
that's a good point.
And we're gonna be hitting that next.
They're gonna run out of money. You know, you got to trade off the money. You know what I'm saying? That's such a sad situation for the Raiders. But no, I agree with your prediction there. I think that this team, again, because they play in the AFC, they just don't match up with the AFC, man. Like they just don't.
It's not good for them.
I argue they don't match up with much of the NFC either.
I think
but if you drop them in the NFC South, I could talk myself into like
you can make an argument
6 wins.
They could win a couple games because like they have the top end talent that some of the NFC teams don't have.
But I do agree they are a uniquely bad team across the whole NFL.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, 7 wins, like they're probably going, and this is the thing that sucks for the Raiders, right? Is they're probably going to win like 6 games, right? And that's going to put you out of like that top 5 pick territory, probably, or at least
they're probably going to end up doing something like Tony said, where like the end of the season, week 18, they spoil somebody's plans, but on top of spoiling somebody's plans,
they get to takes
them out of like it moves them from pick 3 to like pick 7, and they're like, oh, come on, this win was great, but was it worth it?
We're speaking Raiders fans into hell right now.
We're literally putting them in just.
Unfortunately, they play the Broncos week 18. They're not going to be spoiling anything that matters.
They still probably beat.
Hey, who knows? They could be pushing. They could be pushing for 12 wins.
Oh yeah, if you're Zach,
maybe.
No, but I'm gonna say, like I said, 7 wins is like if everything goes well and Garoppolo plays all the games and like. I don't know, does a couple things well, and Devonta Adams is just better than everybody, which is usually the case. But I don't know. I don't think they're gonna go winless, like Tony said they could possibly do. But like it'd be funny. If
I don't think they will. It's just possible, I
mean, if let's say Garoppolo goes down like halfway through week 1, like an Aiden O'Connell or whoever the hell it is that comes in,
Brian Hoyer
or Brian
Hoyer.
Yeah, like all I'm saying, like if Brian Hoyer
Chase
comes
Garbers
ahead of like O'Connell,
it's a fake
like
name. Please tell me it's a fake name.
No, California quarterback, right? Chase Garbers, Zach? Yep. California? Yeah. He runs fast. That's all I know.
He was born on June 6th, 1999.
Young guy. Youngin.
All right.
No, but yeah, if you're the Raiders, just don't show up. It's fine. Just try again next year. All I'm hoping for you guys is you get top 5 pick.
Or, I argue, show up and be like the Oakland Athletics fans and be like, hey, it's not us that's at fault. It's you guys.
Yeah, listen, Oakland's going through it the last couple of years.
Give them the money so that way they can invest it in the team and get better players.
Yeah. Moving on to the Chargers. Now we're having some fun. Now we can have some fun, right, guys?
Oh, by the way, I was gonna say 4-13 is my legit like prediction.
That sounds about right.
I think that is exactly what's going to happen. Yeah, that's the perfect one.
Yeah, I'll go with that as well. 4-13. So
All
Chargers,
right.
a little bit more fun, guys. We can get into first of all, biggest news: Justin Herbert extension. Totally worth it. Makes sense. 100%.
Well
We're all good
earned.
with that. Yeah.
Congratulations. It's a value
Despite
already because he's still on
yeah,
the team.
despite the Twitter folks or X or whatever it's being called now, thinking Justin Herbert is not good.
The website
Wrong.
formerly known as Twitter.
Right. Yeah. Incorrect. There's certain guys, and I'm just going to start because we've been starting with the quarterbacks, except for the Raiders, because who cares about Jimmy Garoppolo? There's certain guys that I've watched over the past like really 10 years or so. When I've I've been a fan for more than 10 years, but like really like that dove into the game in the last 10 years. But like sometimes the analysis is as simple as watch the guy throw the football. Justin Herbert's one of those guys where you just like watch him throw the football and like you almost don't really care like what the outcome is because you're just like, holy hell. Like, did you see the ball come out of his hands the way it did?
Yeah, like if he understands the sport at all, this dude's
right,
gonna
he's
be good.
Exactly. It's like because he was a guy that I missed on because I was so focused on like how bad the Oregon offense was. I'm like, oh man, maybe he just doesn't have it. And then I'm like, oh, never mind. He just like the worst offense ever for no reason at all. I don't know what that was about. Like, you just watch him throw, and you're like, all right. As long as like the coaching is all right, which we'll get into that a little bit for this year, especially, he's going to be good, and he's been phenomenal. I mean, he one of the best rookie seasons ever, especially in terms of just raw production. After I feel every time I have to talk about Tyrod Taylor, I get so sad because dude is the least like lucky person on the planet.
You get sad.
Zach, listen to me. I know, Hokie. I know.
I have his autograph.
I get it. It makes me sad every time because like. Not even saying he like should have started more games than he has or anything like that. But like every time he gets behind a quarterback or in front of a quarterback, like something tragic happens to him. It's insane. Like I just don't understand. But obviously comes in for Tyrod Taylor back in 2020. He was 2020 pick, yeah, and just lights it up compared to what people would have thought, right? And he's been getting better every year, and it's really well deserved contract, despite what other people obviously will tell you sometimes. But for me in this season, it's all about, despite he has his own separate flaws, what can Kellen Moore bring to this offense to help elevate the downfield passing game, especially because it's just been really frustrating to watch a team that employs one of the most talented throwers of the football, maybe ever, because there's a lot of them playing right now, but he's in that conversation with them, and had him basically playing darts. Like that's what was happening, right? How much of that can we see improve this year is, I think, a really big talking point with this team, and kind of the ceiling of this team is based on that. But there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So let's get into the strengths of this team. Quarterback, obviously, just talked about Justin Herbert. I think the receiver core, while I'd like it to have different skill sets than it has currently, I like, obviously, what you have.
They have good players. They don't have the variety I'd like.
Right. Yeah. And then Quentin Johnston, the rookie, his impact is really going to be based a lot on, like, what can he do as a rookie compared to what I kind of view him as? Like, I don't love him as a rookie because I think he has a lot of things to work on still, but he does add a little bit of a different element. So I'm hoping that can kind of shine through. Running back with Eckler, he's a really effective passing game weapon, and he's a good runner of the football. I would like to see someone else get more carries for this year for sure. Whether that's Kelly or whoever's going to end up being. We'll see what that ends up looking like. Isaiah Spiller, maybe.
Is that who I think that is?
Who?
That's no relation to CJ Spiller, right?
I don't know if they're related, but no, he was an A&M draft pick last year. There was some amount of hype for being like RB2. I saw some people had him over Breece Hall, and I never really saw it. I saw him as like a fourth round plotter.
Think he has the athletic upside,
but he's there. He exists.
He's
just another John Kelly or Josh Kelly or whatever the hell the guy's name is.
They're not related.
Yeah, from UCLA, Joshua Kelly, actually. Yeah. Offensive line, I think healthy is going to be much better, right? Rashawn Slater coming back, that's going to help a lot.
Jamari Salyer was insane last year.
I know.
He locked down a starting guard job. Like, if he has to go out and play tackle, I'm not sweating.
He can do it at right tackle. I mean, Pipkins is right now the starting right tackle. They brought him back, and he's fine. And then, assuming they play, I just want them to play the edge group. Just play games, please. Play games. I'm tired.
Well, okay. Assuming somebody returns back to their former self, they should have one of the best secondaries in the entire league.
that's what I was going to get
That's
into.
a
Is
big assumption.
the depth.
Okay, well, it's
in
one season.
secondary
I mean,
is
Jason
know,
Jackson
yeah.
had one season, but
I'm
I'm
just
saying if.
I mean we've had the front row view to it all the past 15 years.
The
If Bill
Chargers don't
Belichick
stay healthy,
lets an
guys.
elite player walk in his prime, he was a system player. Like I just don't trust that J.C. Jackson. Like I don't know. I see him as like Eric Flowers from a few years ago. It turns out he was just a Belichick product. He can prove me wrong this year.
I do like their linebacker group though.
See, like Eric Hendricks, he's still a good player, right? I just don't know if he's going to elevate that linebacker group because like Kenneth Murray, he's been very hit or miss in his career. So
I don't know if he's going to give you a lift over what Drew Tranquil got you.
Right.
Because like if you're telling me that it's Eric Hendricks and Drew Tranquil, I know they're kind of redundant in skill set, but I like that a whole lot better than Kenneth Murray being the one remaining on the team. So yes, I have a bias against Kenneth Murray that I'm going to have to find a way to shake unless he just, proves my bias right.
Right, unless he proves,
like he has so far.
So far, yeah. But so like I think strength-wise, like what we talked about so far, I think that's really the clear strengths on this team. The secondary has upside, like Zach.
What about tight end?
I don't care for Gerald Everett that much to put him as a strength. Let me put that.
But I also like Donald Parham. Donald Parham Jr.
Yeah, but he just hasn't been able to put together because of injuries and other things. Like I like the skill set.
He's so tall. It's exciting.
Right, he's so tall. Right, you love the tall. I can't say anything. I have a tall tight end. I'm excited about. Yeah, fair. So whatever.
Yeah, but 6'8", 237 is a bit different than 6'8", like 280.
This is true. But the point being is like the tight end group is adequate for what this team will probably do. Any strengths you guys want? I don't think probably any strengths or anything you want to talk about with those groups before we move on to weaknesses here.
I will say Gerald Everett for what is asked of the tight end in Kellen Moore's scheme. I feel better about. I'm more on Zach's side of like thinking that's a plus.
Yeah, he could be. Yeah, he did leave a bad taste in my mouth though. A couple of games last year where I'm like that interception against the Chiefs, like in that crazy game where like he kind of just like gave up on the route a little bit. Was too tired, I think.
Yeah, so he had just had like a 40-yard catch and run. He was begging them, please take me off the field. I can't go right now, and they chose to throw him a pass. That's on whoever chose to throw him a pass. It was just
weird, right? Like I don't know what that was about. I forgot that's what happened, but no. But yeah, anything else you want to add, Tony?
I will say the biggest strength I think on this team and the biggest addition, because they spent all their money last year. They didn't really spend it this year.
Yeah, they didn't spend it this year, no.
The biggest addition, and I'm going to hyper zoom in, it's Kellen Moore, but specifically about him, it's not even the deep throwing because Justin Herbert's going to do that on his own if it's there. It is the pace. They're going to go from, they were like towards the bottom of the league in pace last year.
Yeah,
their whole philosophy was slow it down, ball control, kind of exactly what Brandon Staley wants his defense to force offenses to do. They were like, yeah, let's do that willingly. So what the change is going to be is Dallas, who played super fast under Kellen Moore, the pace is going to be up, giving Justin Herbert more chances to make his way through his progressions because he's super smart. If you give him limited opportunities, his ADOT might be pretty low because the check down is usually the right move if you're playing mistake-free football, but he's going to have more opportunities where it makes sense to pass it downfield, and that's just going to lift everything in this offense. So I think the pace is the thing I'm most excited about.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Anything you want to add, Zach, with strengths before we get to weaknesses here?
So I guess we were talking about Justin Herbert earlier, and I hold again the lovely factors of being a Miami Dolphins fan. I hold the lovely viewpoint of having to sit here front row and watch this whole who's better, Tua, Herbert, who's going to have better production, because they were 6 and 7. They were picked right after each other. My only issue so far with either of them, and I mean, like, look, they're both playing very well, but they both suffer from the exact same thing, and that is inconsistency. They both have their skill set. They both found a home, and whether it took to a little longer, they've both found coaching that is there to build around them and support them in how they can play football, but they both suffer incredibly from inconsistency. So hopefully with this move for Kellen Moore, and it's the same thing with Tua this year with getting his second year, although Tua's primary issue was injuries last year, but this both having a second year now, it's going to be Kellen Moore's first year with Herbert, but getting a year to actually get in a offense that supports how you play instead of hindering how you play, that's going to be massive. I mean, we saw that in and when Herbert was in college, everybody was amazed when he ran in the Rose Bowl, but he was like,
You
"No,
talk to me about
I could do this." They just I was the only option.
Yeah, well, so the whole thing with Herbert is like I don't view him as like really having consistency issues at all. I think his offense has just been very, very poorly coached for most of his career so far. I think him and Tua had the opposite issues last year, where like Tua's issues as a player, his physical limitations, but he had the perfect scheme. Justin is all talent and not scheme, and now I think it's going to be a little bit closer this year, where like I still think like Tua's in the literally there's never been a scheme player combo. I think that's been like more effective on a per rate like a rate basis than he was last year.
Okay, well, it also helps when you
nuts.
have Waddle.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Is like a scheme player, like everything together, like was insane whenever two was healthy last year.
I think Herbert's gonna have 2 weeks from now.
Herbert's gonna have a closer to like not maybe the perfect scheme, but he's gonna have a scheme that actually can like allow him to elevate the offense beyond what it's been so far. And that I'm really excited to see for sure. In general, like you talk about pace, tone, and everything else. I think deep passing they'll just scheme it better, but it will also just happen more naturally because Herbert will actually have the opportunity to do so, like you said, instead of trying to play this weird like pseudo ball control situation until the fourth quarter, and he's like, I got to rip 40-yarders every play. Like, do more of that throughout the game, and you might not be down in the fourth quarter. But going into weaknesses here, I don't love whoever's playing safety next to Derwin James. Basically, at this point, like I don't know, like none of the options made me go, that
Alohi Gilman.
Alohi Gilman. Yeah, good for him.
And even deeper into that, this team runs 3 safeties more than any other team in the league.
And like
so not only are we concerned about Alohi Gilman, who used to be that third safety, but now we're concerned about JT Woods.
Like
and
I
him
like his
playing a
upside.
De facto starting role.
Like I like his upside as like a true like deep safety because of his range and ball skills, but like he was a 6th round pick. Like there's a reason for that, right? Like he pretty much has just that skills. Like I don't think he's doing much else. That the safeties outside of James and if Derwin goes down like he has done before, it's gonna get ugly back there. Like it just is, right? The quarterback depth. If J.C. Jackson isn't at least a starting caliber player, I don't know what they're gonna do because like Asante Samuel's a good player, Michael Davis is a solid player. Those two are the only ones
just
that
Sir
are
Taylor.
Like, just Sir Taylor. Yeah, sure.
Oh,
wow, that's a capital Sir.
Yeah, right. Capital Sir. I just don't trust. I don't trust any of their corners fully, other than maybe Asante Samuel. Like Michael Davis has been pretty consistent throughout his career, so like he's fine. If Jackson doesn't come back healthy in the starting caliber, this corner room could get ugly very fast too with one injury, and it might be J.C. Jackson based on last year. Like. I don't know. It's just the secondary is really just a concern for me overall, except for Derwin. And Derwin's even because of how he plays, like he's a secondary player, but he's really just a defensive player, and they move him around where they need to move him. So like secondary in general is a question mark for me. Like other than I don't think there's a lot of like really bad like their interior defensive line has a lot of players they added last year. Like you hope they play better this year, and the run defense can be better. But like linebackers, obviously a bit of an issue as well. We talked about that because like Kendricks should still be a good player. Can Kenneth Murray play closer? He's never going to live up to his first round billing at this point. It's not going to happen. But can you at least be a start? Yeah, it wasn't. No, like can you at least be a starting caliber player? Then you'll be okay at linebacker. But like so, the defense in general has question marks, right? And like Brandon Staley, as much as like I'm questioning him more and more. I think as a defensive coach, he at least should be able to kind of get this group to be okay with what they currently have. But they're an injury or 2 away a couple positions from really being in a bad way defensively. Like that's kind of my concern with it. And you've seen in these, like obviously the Chargers, they get hurt. They just get hurt. Like they do.
It's a constant.
It is what it is. Like it doesn't seem to matter what the situation is. They get hurt. I mean, this is a team that literally punctured Tyrod Taylor's lung because why not? Like they literally just like
to the team's benefit.
Yeah, it's granted, yes, but like it's like this is the type of stuff that happens with them. But anything else you guys want to add weaknesses before we do roster or before we do a record prediction here?
So I'm with you. The defensive roster overall has me scared. But larger than that, even and it's not a weakness that matters this year, but I'm terrified of what the future looks like for this team because of they've really built this heavily on an old, expensive roster. They have an expensive roster. They don't
They
have
do.
room, and everybody's aging and starting to hit that point where they're falling off. So it almost feels like this year is the last year before a significant shakeup where we
could.
only see like Justin Herbert and a few others in the next iteration of this roster. Like I think it's
Yeah.
going to be like a couple year cycle where we just turn over every position except for offensive line and Herbert. So
Yeah.
I'd say the future is a weakness for them, but this year I do think that they I don't know, they got a competitive team and depth is an issue.
Yeah. What do you think, Zach? Anything you want to add weakness wise?
Yeah, no, I mean with all the question marks on the defense, you're in the AFC West, and that's not a good place to be having your question marks. You can hide a lot of your question marks, as the Chiefs has shown, with having a really really good quarterback and not
Yeah.
necessarily investing as much in the offense, and putting more of that focus on the defense. But hopefully,
I will say Staley pitched a couple perfect games with
He
really
did.
depleted personnel last year.
He
Like
did. Yeah.
the
He's
Dolphins
a good
game where
defensive coach. Yeah.
the Dolphins game, and he's done it against the Chiefs kind of every time. So like
Yeah.
I have faith in him. I wish he surrounded himself with better talent to put less reliance on him.
Yes, that's the question. I think that overall, and I'll start with my prediction here, record-wise. Like, I think this team is better equipped to get away with some of the possible defensive issues that might come up if people get hurt or whatever it may be, right? Or if there's regression with age and things like that. Just because they do have an offensive coordinator who can kind of force the issue more so than they have in the past, right? They can attack defenses more opposed to just trying to get down the field and let their playmakers, bail them out, honestly, in a lot of cases last year. Um, I think that their floor is 8 or 9 wins if the injuries pop up, like I think that they could or probably will at times, because this defense could really easily fall apart despite Steelers coaching if like the edges don't stay healthy, if Derwin James, God forbid, goes down. Like it's just they're teetering on the edge in a lot of places, right? And that's a really scary place to be in the AFC, because even if you're a really talented team and you have a Justin Herbert and you have that elite quarterback like they do, a couple key injuries in an AFC, if a couple other teams don't have those, you could lose some games that you otherwise should have won. Like it's very possible for them to have that happen. But I think they're a really solid team overall, and having Herbert does raise that floor up a little bit higher than it may have been otherwise. I think they could win 12-ish games if everyone stays mostly healthy and Herbert shows up the way that I expect them to in this new offense. There are this type of team that can be in that 12-13 win category and like at least push the Chiefs record wise, right? Like I don't know if they're going to push them overall wise, but they could push them record wise in this division. But it's still going to be theirs to lose, of course, the Chiefs. So
Yeah,
that's on me.
I'm right there with you. I think
Yeah.
12 win ceiling. The 13 hangs out there, but just because of who else
Yeah.
they're playing against, I'm not going to
Right.
say it.
Yeah.
And then I do think they have a high floor. I think it's 9 wins if injuries happen. Obviously, injury to Justin Herbert changes calculus
That's
on
a different
everything.
type of
But
thing. But I don't. You don't like to
but
mess with assume that.
yeah, so like if as long as he's playing, I think 9 wins is their floor.
Right. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, no, it's a pretty high floor. I was going to say 8. And they're a team that can easily push into the double digits. Look, like last year, I think that was, and even though everybody was wanting the Broncos to be really well, I think more frustrating was that the Chargers did not live up to the expectations that people were expecting them to last year. And like we're like everybody is expecting this to be the 1B to the Chiefs 1A. Like it's supposed to be this massive arms race between the two. They should be splitting the season series and like going into the playoffs. Oh, the Chiefs and the Chargers are playing in the playoffs. This is like crazy, blah 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 blah. But we haven't gotten there yet. So hopefully this is the year where it's like, oh yes, this is what we've been waiting for. This is what we're seeing. This is what like everybody's come for. But again, those questions on the defense are very troubling to be wanting to do that with a team like the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. Speaking of the Chiefs, and we've had a long show, but it's been a fun one, so I'm all right with it. Moving on to the Chiefs, this is obviously the team to beat in general, quite literally. Coming off of the Super Bowl win against the Philadelphia Eagles, very close one, admittedly, but it was a win for them. They are the boogeyman, right? That's who this team is now. This is where we're at with them. We've been there with them really for the last couple of years, especially, but they are the ones that everyone is chasing, right? And I don't expect that to change. Let me put it that way. This team, strength wise, just to kind of get that out of the way, it's a long list, right? Like that's just kind of what it is when you have a team that's talented overall, and they have some weaknesses that we'll have to talk about, but they're weaknesses that almost don't matter because of the strengths, and that's kind of the key thing with them is even when they have weaknesses and they've had weaknesses in the past, it almost doesn't matter a lot of the time. And it's really starts with the quarterback, right? Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. If anyone tries to tell you differently at this point, they're just trying to be difficult. That's just what it is, right? There is and honestly, in my opinion, a decently sized gap between him
Yes.
and the rest of the guys, right? Like it's at least enough where there isn't a really truly good argument to be made for someone above him. And that matters a lot in an NFL where it's becoming more and more quarterback centric, right? We're seeing quarterback contracts go up, and he's actually now, I think, approaching not even the top 10 in quarterback contracts on a per year basis, which is funny. Obviously, his contract's unique in its length and how it can be adjusted and everything. But that's where it starts. And then you have the second thing that kind of makes this so difficult is Travis Kelce at tight end. Those two together, and this is why people with we were worried about, what happens with Tyreek Hill leaves. It doesn't matter because Travis Kelce plays for them. Him and Mahomes together are basically the offense, right? And everything around them works because of those two. And that's why the weakness, one of them, we'll talk about a little bit later, doesn't really matter as much as it probably should. Offensive line. The tackles, Juwan Taylor, I do actually believe, and I think he's going to actually be a better player for them than Orlando Brown Jr. was ultimately. Maybe not immediately, but he will be, I think, at some point. And then you do have a little bit of questions for right tackle, which I believe right now, I forget who their right tackle is slated to be.
Wait, isn't Juwan Taylor playing right tackle?
He's moving
Juwan,
left as far as I know. Yeah.
They have him at right tackle, and then they have Trey
Donovan
Smith
at
right guard.
Oh, are they moving him? Are they going to keep him?
Donovan
right
Smith's
tackle?
playing left tackle.
Oh, is he going to play left tackle? Okay, I thought originally he was supposed to split that.
Tooney, Humphrey, and
gotcha.
Smith.
But that interior,
like usual.
that interior is where the strength is. Yes, as much as tackles are important, Taylor's a really good tackle. I do believe in him, and then Smith has been rough the past couple of years, but with Mahomes as the quarterback, I'm not as worried about it. That interior though is dominating, just unbelievable. Interior defensive line, Chris Jones especially.
Is he on the team? Do we know?
He'll be on the team.
Has he showed up?
He'll be on the team. There's just no way they don't let him play. This is gonna happen.
I mean, I was saying the same thing about Tyreek Hill last year, and then here we are.
I don't see him getting either sitting out or getting moved before the season though. I think maybe long term you have questions about it, but I think they figure something out for this year. Linebacker, love Nick Bolton, and Willie Gay's not a bad player himself. So I think those
got
two,
a great linebacker duo.
Great linebacker duo. Yeah, I really like the cornerback group. I do. I like L'Jarius Sneed a lot. He's kind of up and down at times, but he's a really good playmaking corner. I really like Trent McDuffie a lot, right? Like that's kind of the guy that I think is the highest ceiling in corner for them for sure. Like as far as how good he can end up being. Jalen Watson's fine. I don't think he's anything special necessarily, but I think he'll hold it down. And safety's not bad either. I didn't put them as a true strength. Justin Reed's really good. Brian Cook, I think, can be a really good player too, but they have so many strengths I didn't want to put everything as a strength. And then lastly, and probably most importantly outside of quarterback, coaching. Andy Reid is the head coach of this team. It's just not fair when he has Patrick Mahomes. It just isn't. It isn't fair, frankly. Anything you guys want to touch on with this before we talk about weaknesses as well?
So yeah, I didn't really do a ton of prep for the Chiefs because
why would I?
Right? So in lieu of preparing for the Chiefs, I've just had this tweet that I saw on my phone an hour ago at 11:20. I've just been having it replay on I have my phone in front of me. Right. It's just Patrick Mahomes throwing behind the back pass. To Sky Moore on a screen, and that is my Chiefs analysis. That they're the boogeyman. They everything is a strength, nothing is a weakness. They're insane.
Yeah, Zach, anything you want to talk about the Chiefs?
Yeah, I guess the only thing that I would add is you said coaching for Andy Reid, but let's not forget about our boy Steve over on the
Oh yeah,
defensive side.
Steve gets it done.
Regular season is questionable, but the
Regular
playoffs he
season
comes to
Steve.
play.
Yeah,
Hey,
I think I
that's all they
really
need him to
think
do.
Spagnuolo is just messing like during the regular season. He's just gathering information. Like
I think that actually
Yeah.
totally makes sense.
He's literally
He's
just
gathering information and he's letting his rookies figure it out
he's literally just
Yeah,
like
they're
no, yeah,
ready.
exactly.
Mahomes will
Exactly.
keep us will win 13 games. I don't have to care that much. I'm just gonna figure out who I can trust when the playoffs start and what I need to do against like whoever I'm playing in the playoffs. And we're good. Like this is literally
No,
what it feels like he's doing.
but honestly, I mean, that's all he has to do is
Yeah,
just sit
yeah,
back,
doesn't matter.
let them figure it out during the regular season because they'll win enough games to make it to the postseason.
Oh yeah.
But then
easily.
when it's win or go home, that's when he's like, all right, guys, you spent the entire regular season figuring it out.
Now it's time to do
I
it.
don't want to see no crap. Come in here, let's get this done.
Exactly.
So,
And like
yeah.
again, there's not a lot of analysis that needs to be done here, right? Like until proven otherwise, this is the team that everybody else is chasing. It just is. Now the AFC is a gauntlet. I'm not saying that they are going to even necessarily be guaranteed to be like the one seed or anything necessarily like that, because the regular season for them doesn't mean as much as it does for some other teams. But again, until like obviously the Bengals did it the 1 year, 2 years ago now. I just can't really sit here and say, okay, the Chiefs aren't probably going to go to the Super Bowl. Like I'm betting on them over the field at this point until proven otherwise. And again, Mahomes has yet to like not make the AFC Championship game in his career.
Not only that, he has yet to play in a road playoff game.
Yes,
he
he's not
has
played a road.
hosted the last 5 AFC championships,
Yes,
despite
literally.
not being the one seed every single time. So not only do they control everything, their own destiny, win every game they have to, but they also just are there to capitalize when luck benefits them. They're elite, they're a super team, they're the best team in the world. Yeah. And luck is on their side. Goddamn, come on! Like,
yeah, really, seriously.
This is like the Patriots run. Like it was just everything works out for them because they do these micro little things to put themselves in place for those things to work out for them.
Yeah.
It's a
superpower. I legitimately think that this is the closest thing to like the Patriots dynasty that we've seen, obviously, but it's different because with Brady, it was about mostly though like Belichick and the defense and Brady.
Yeah, it was like discipline,
right? Like the Chiefs are fun, man. They're just fun. Like there's a different vibe with them. They're not like the supervillain. They're not the dark brooding cloud over the NFL. Like they are the lights in the NFL that everyone is looking into and chasing. Right? It's a different feel and a different vibe. Like I cannot bring myself to dislike this team. I had no trouble.
The worst part.
I had no trouble disliking the Patriots. I still don't like the Patriots. And it's not even
that was easy because of Tom Brady.
Well, but again,
and Bill Belichick and
yeah, just the whole thing.
Okay. Hear me out. I do not hate Bill Belichick as much now as I did when Brady was on the team.
Because he's just a sad old man. It's hard to hate a sad old man.
That's true.
But he hasn't changed anything about himself. He hasn't changed anything.
No, but I see him.
But you don't. But the issue is
losing.
You don't have Brady there, literally just going to the media bitching about it all the time, and just being like, "Oh, I'm so tired of this." Like, "Oh, Belichick's awful." Blah blah blah. Like, I don't have any issues with Belichick.
At this point, no, I don't.
I think.
I never really did have issues.
Because my hatred kind of went to the Bucks after Brady left, and I was just like, "Yo, no, I just can't stand this man. He's so annoying." It went from like me being like, "I don't like him" to like, "Oh my god, like, all right, we get it. You're good." Just
I almost don't want to even invoke his name because I'm afraid he'll crawl out of wherever he's at right now and be like, "I got one more in me."
No.
I'm like, all right, Tom, I can't.
He's supposed to go do stand up. Remember?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No, but
no, and that's the thing about like this whole postseason. I was like, no, I want to see the Chiefs win another one. Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
And my whole being now is I want Patrick Mahomes to get more Super Bowls than Tom Brady, because now I want everybody to be like, oh no, Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in NFL history, because that would actually be a title deserving of. He would be actually deserving of that title because he's actually the best. Like he would have the accomplishments and the talent.
Right. I think that's the thing is like everybody is rooting for Mahomes to get to that point where the conversation can be had. I think he's definitely well on his way. So
Very
before
much
we do our record prediction, that doesn't probably matter too much. The only weaknesses on this team that I can really see that are technically weaknesses, but again probably won't matter by the time the games are important. Receiver is a mismatch of guys, but they're going to make it work. I still like Sky Moore a lot. I know he didn't have a big impact last year, but I like him a lot as a player.
I
Kadarius Toney
like
probably will have a couple
I
games that are
like
crazy.
Tony on this team. I
Yeah,
think this is his perfect destination.
right. But like, I think he'll have a couple big games because it's just what he'll do. Everyone else, I still don't understand the draft pick of I can't even think of his name right now. Still,
Rashee Rice.
Oh
Rashee
no,
Rice.
they're gonna make us eat our words. That's
Somehow
what's
he'll
gonna
be
happen.
great though. Yeah, that's the
That's
thing.
what's
Is like
gonna happen.
All they're
They're gonna
gonna
make us
do
eat our
is
words.
run him on shallow crossers
Literally,
and let
yeah.
him just beat
Run.
guys up on his way down the
Just
field.
run.
Like
he'll be fine because he is drafted.
they're
by
not
this
going to
team.
ask
That's
him to do
thing.
the stuff he sucks at. He's going to
Exactly.
look good. Yeah.
The fact that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is now the third string running back is insane.
Okay, all right. He's the
I
third
liked
string
him.
running back behind a guy who has had both a torn labrum and some other. I forget what the other issue is Isaiah Pacheco had this year. Who knows when he's like if he's going to be ready to go. Jerick McKinnon, he's like 30 something years old. Like Clyde Edwards-Helaire,
Jerick McKinnon, guys.
we are just not that many things away from him just being back to being their lead rusher, and it doesn't matter because none of them matter.
Well. Yeah, I wish him well, but yeah, he probably didn't have to be drafted in the first round. No, but I think the only other position where I'm like, I don't know about is edge. But that's just because like Karlaftis is a second-year player. I like him a lot, and then they drafted Nnedi Uzama, which I do like him a lot too. But again, does it matter? I don't think it matters.
No, I think there is one weakness, and I do think it matters. I don't think it matters until they are in the Super Bowl, but we've seen it play out before. Donovan Smith is an absolute liability at left tackle for a team like this. And I know you said like with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, I'm less worried. Patrick Mahomes makes playing left tackle way harder than it actually is. Because you never know where he is. Imagine trying to block for a guy who you just have to guess, well, he's behind me. I better hold this guy exactly where he is right here. Otherwise, it's a sack. So, like, playing left tackle for Patrick Mahomes is very difficult. I don't think he has... I think he's washed. Like, I've seen the practice reps in the offseason. I saw him play last year.
He's going to get replaced at some point, I think. Probably Niang comes in. But,
yeah, I don't think it matters enough in the regular season. But... we saw a Super Bowl where the tackle situation, granted there were injuries at tackle that led to this. They were
starting like five guys who aren't good. So
Patrick Mahomes was running around for his life and scored, 9 points?
Yeah. Despite his best efforts.
That's a real worry of mine. I don't think it matters until you get to the AFC Championship game against the Bengals D-line, or you get to the Super Bowl against the Eagles or 49ers D-line. I'll even throw the Bills D-line in there because
they're healthy.
We can get there. But like I do think that it doesn't become a problem until then, but at that point in time, it becomes a very big problem.
Right. So, yeah, overall, I'm just going to say their record prediction for me is they could win every game if they really wanted to. They won't because they don't have to. I'm going to say 13 is probably my actual record, is like how many I think they'll end up winning. Their floor is like 11, I'll say, just because, why not? They might have a couple of regular season games that are like, whatever, we don't really care that much. But yeah, they're going to be real damn good. That's all I have to say about that.
Yep. I've been saying for any team I think is a true Super Bowl contender, ceiling of 14 wins, because I was holding 17 for something special.
Yes.
This is the team that I think has a ceiling of 17 wins. Like you said, I don't think they achieve it. I do think they hit 13 or 14.
I just think they don't need to do it, so they won't. That's what it feels like, right? Because this is a team that if they really went for it, I think they could take a challenge to win every game. I just don't think they need to, and they don't care to. I don't think it matters.
And I think it's really cool to foil the Bills and the Chiefs against each other in this context, because defensively specifically, the Bills' whole philosophy is you never sacrifice a snap, right? Like you play sound defense, you play regular season defense, and you try to win as many regular season games as possible. And you end up with a 3-loss record combined for 8 points in those 3 losses. And then you get to January and you don't know how to match up against a real offense. You don't know how to play matchup defense and you get pummeled. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, they're like, we're going to spend the regular season figuring it out. The regular season is expendable. And in January, we will be elite. That is like, that's how you should do it. You should try to be elite in January, not in the regular season. I'm upset at the Bills because they're the opposite of the thing I want, and the thing I'm celebrating. I will say,
like, the Chiefs are a little different because they've had the luxury of knowing, like, we're going to be there no matter what, so we can screw around. Like, the Bills were in such a bad way for so long that I think they don't have the mentality of, like, we don't have to worry about these teams. Like, we're good enough to win 11, 12 games regular season. We can afford to, not take it easy, but like we can afford to mess around a little bit, figure stuff out, use this as a time to do that, and then turn up to the playoffs. I'm hoping they're getting there at some point because of the continued success they've had.
I think that was a very Leslie Frazier issue. So hopefully,
fair enough.
We'll talk about this more in a couple weeks, but hopefully things are on the come up.
All right, Zach, anything you want to add with your record prediction? You kind of on the same boat?
So I agree with Tony. However, I have one other team that I would include in my could win 17 games category. And we will talk about them next week. However, they're going to be testing some very rough waters with how the schedules line up, though, because whereas I could see the one team that I feel like could win 17 games doing it for a pride aspect, I feel like the Chiefs at some point we get to a point where they're like, okay, no, this isn't going to happen. Let's just save our butts and go back home.
They're not worried about it.
They're very willing to lay off the gas when they don't need to be on the gas.
But no, I think this is a 13-14 win team. I honestly feel like you could see a 15-2 and like there really is only 2 games where they were just like, okay, yeah, no, we're just going to have to pack it in today. That
probably Herbert makes a stupid throw and I don't know, some random.
I mean, there's
they play the Colts because the Colts always beat them for some reason.
They don't play the Colts, but there are some.
You don't have to worry about that. Yeah,
there are some interesting games. I mean, you've got Miami overseas, I believe it looks like, because it's at 9:30 in the morning. Philadelphia.
Miami overseas this year.
Yeah, I think
that's crazy. That's a crazy game to be overseas.
Dude,
actually,
I don't know why did they take like the primo AFC matchups? Because like you got Chiefs, Dolphins overseas.
Yeah, it's in Germany.
Bills, Jags overseas.
Oh, that is the Germany game. Yeah,
these are prime
the Jags
AFC
always
matchups.
Play overseas. So
I know,
Jags,
but do it against the Titans, not the Bills. Like
this is true. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Early morning football.
You know what? Time out. Let me throw an olive branch to our friends over in England for 1 second, because I think it's been long enough that they've had the absolute horrific matchups for the Jaguars. That once the Jags get good, they're like, okay, maybe we'll give them a couple of like high profile matchups. I think it's only fair.
If you can't fall in love with ugly football, you don't deserve football. So I say give them the worst and let them prove they deserve it.
Fair enough,
but no, I mean. Yeah, this is the team. This is the number 1 team in the league for a reason. And until somebody stops them or makes them do otherwise, there's not much to talk about.
And honestly, a team could stop them in the postseason next year, and I'm still going to pick them the following year.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't matter. Like you said, the Bengals did it once.
Yeah,
you got to do it again. And we'll see if they can. All right, that'll do it for us this week, guys. We'll be back next week, hopefully, if everything goes well, with the NFC East. I'm going to finish the NFC, and then, of course, we'll say best for last for the sake of you guys here. AFC East, we will break them down. I will be the one trying to probably give you guys reasons not to love your teams, even though there's not too many reasons not to at this point. Just trying to play devil's advocate a little bit. But we'll talk about it then. In the meantime, hopefully we get some more news, some preseason stuff. Hopefully no injuries any more than that. We don't want to have any big injuries affect these things. But we'll see how that goes, and we'll see you guys next time.